Welcome to the John Freakin' Muir Pod. Lace up those boots and sling on the pack for a romp through trails, short and long. With your host and Renaissance man, Doc. It's time to embrace the suck.
Welcome back to another week on the trail. I'm Doc, and this is the John Freakin' Muir Pod. Let's start off with a reminder. If you are enjoying the podcast, take just a minute to help us out. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you're not enjoying the pod, well, just go ahead and keep that to yourself. All right, let's get to this week's guest. This week, we are talking to Franck of Speaking Quite Frankly, and I have been really looking forward to our conversation. Franck is going to talk about van life. Is it van life or is it Honda? Is it Honda Fit Life? I don't know. We'll get to that.
I call it van life. Yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
We'll see what we come up with.
Van life, as well as some great adventures in the U.S. and abroad. So welcome to the John Freakin' Muir Pod, Franck.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Now, I know you have some hiking miles under your boots. Have you picked up a trail name along the way?
You know, I've had like a few kind of given to me here and there, but I don't have a dedicated name as of yet. I feel like the one that most people use is like mountain legs or mountain goat legs, something along those lines, just because of my calves, basically. But I feel like that's not like unique enough for any like specific nickname because every hiker has great calves. The other one I've been called is just Franck, Phranque, just spelling my name a different way. So I am still on the hunt for a good trail name.
Okay. Now, trail names, they serve a variety of purposes. One, it kind of defines your personality, maybe a characteristic trait, physical abnormality, extra large calves, maybe. It also serves to provide a little bit of anonymity because, here on the podcast, we go strictly by trail names. I'm Doc. Doesn't say Doc on my paycheck or on my driver's license. And so have you ever thought about it? So, and also mountain calves or mountain legs or mountain goat legs, that's a lot of syllables.
It's a lot.
If you were in an emergency situation on the trail and you're hiking with some buddies, by the time they got all those syllables out, I mean, the disaster may have already happened.
I'd be dead. Yeah. There's just no chance.
Yeah. So I was thinking maybe just legs or
legs,
maybe calf master.
That's a good one. Yeah, I think both of those sound good. I mean,
we'll try those out.
I'm not ready to commit for the rest of my life, but yeah, we can try out all sorts of things.
That's right. Or Franck, but I'll say it with the PH.
Yeah. So Franck maybe is like a better way of pronouncing it. Yeah.
Franck. I like that. Okay. Very good. Hey, have you listened to the podcast before?
Yeah, I was able to listen to one of the episodes. Unfortunately, I didn't have the time to listen to too much, but I'm a big fan of just hikers and just hearing stories of people out on trail living in the outdoors.
Well, we have plenty of that on the podcast. So when you have a chance, go ahead and tune in. I only ask because I want to make sure that you are familiar with a regular segment that we have on the podcast, and it's called the Pro Tip Insight of the Week. And that is toward the end of the episode. I'm going to turn to you. I'm going to say, Franck, do you know where we are? And you're going to say, no, I have no idea. I'm going to say, we're at that time of the segment where we talk about the Pro Tip Insight of the Week. What bit of wisdom can you share with our listeners to make their next outdoor experience even better? So don't be surprised and keep that in the back of your mind so you can prepare for it.
Great.
Okay. Hey, another feature we've been doing this season is the Must Bring Gear Review, sponsored by the ultralight backpacking gear company Outdoor Vitals. Here's how it works. If you were to let a stranger pack your bag with pretty much generic gear for a multi-day hike, what is the one specific piece of gear you would insist on being packed? And if you got a particular brand for that specific piece of gear, even better. So, Franck, what is your must-bring piece of gear?
Well, this might sound kind of vain, but the first thing I thought of was trekking poles. But then the thing I think I'm going to land on is a tripod, which for me, I do so much blogging and just capturing photos while I'm out on trail. Sometimes it's for blogging, but also I find that when I'm hiking, I enjoy nature more when I'm taking photos of it. It's like some people go out and they'll write poetry. Others will like paint I enjoy capturing photography. So I have a pretty lightweight tripod. I'm actually using it right now. The brand name is Photo Pro, Photopro. Big fan. It collapses down to like, I don't know, yay big, but then it comes out to probably 3 or 4 feet in tripod height. And so I'm a big fan of that piece of gear. Does that count as must-have camping gear if it's for photography? But I'm using it to enjoy the outdoors more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, one of our former guests was very poetic with a turn of phrase. We were lamenting the fact that when we came back from our hikes and we took all these great pictures for us, it was our iPhones. And, you know, we'd be at parties or family gatherings and we would show off these pictures and family members would look at it and go, oh, yeah, that's nice. That's nice. And it's like, no, it's not nice. These are phenomenal places. You cannot understand how majestic and how powerful these places are. And you explain that to them and they look back at the picture and they say, yeah, that's really nice.
It's nice. And so, if you only knew what it took to get this photo.
Right. And so my former guest, Jay Wilson, he said, the way he put it was, it's the frustration of 1,000,000-word places and 1,000-word pictures.
Yeah.
Just can't capture it.
That's such a great way of putting it. Yeah, I agree completely. And I think for some people, they'll set up camp and be able to watch the scenery change and just enjoy that. I really like setting up a tripod and taking multiple photos throughout the sunset or multiple photos throughout just my time, just enjoying the scenery change and just the way in like a second, the sun will go behind a cloud and just everything changes and you just have it side by side and you have like basically your entire evening there and just how nature changed, almost like a story. And it's just really fun for me to go back and remember those times. But you're right. Only I can truly enjoy that moment because you post it to Instagram or you show it to people and people just scroll by and maybe will double tap it. If you're really lucky, they'll write a little comment on there and then they'll just go on with their lives. So it's for you. It's really just for you.
Yep, that's right. And before we get into more of our gear discussion, just set us up a little bit here. I've got a hiking pole. Not like the ones you were going to recommend, but a hiking pole, like a survey. Little cute little turn of phrase there.
P-O-L-L.
P-O-L-L. That's right. All right. So with your experience out there, boots or trail runners?
Okay. So I am a boot person. I understand this is controversial. I get, hey, you can be lighter. Hey, it dries faster. Those are all great things. I really feel that it's important for me to protect my ankles. And also I just want to like put my feet in the best possible situation to perform long term. And I just have concerns with doing trail runners for multiple miles on end. I actually, towards the end of trails, even in my boots, will sometimes tweak an ankle. And so just everything gets loose down there. And I feel like boots give me the support I need to really continue hiking for years to come. But I understand some people, they swear by trail runners and more power to you. I have no hard feelings towards you.
And that's an interesting phenomenon you bring up, is that towards the end of a hike, you tend to twist an ankle or something. It's like the body knows that the trip is almost over. And that's when it starts breaking down. That's when it's like, you feel like you've reached your very limit on that last day, where I think if you knew you had another week, your body would put up with it for that extra week or whatever it may be. But it's always towards the end where you just start breaking down physically and emotionally.
Yeah, it's like that 4 o'clock period with skiers at 4 p.m. That's when everyone's getting injured. It's like they go on that one last run. They're already thinking about, hey, I'm going to go have a great meal or whatever. They're thinking about other things. They're not focused on the matter of hand. And that's what happens to me on trail probably, where, everything's loose. My mind is not thinking about the next step. I'm thinking about the car and the first place I'm going to stop and the meal I'm going to eat. So, it's probably more on me than it is on the footwear.
And I also heard a stat that in mountaineering, 70% of accidents take place after the summit.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Well, and with mountaineering too, going uphill, just the way gravity works, you are more likely to fall onto the mountain, fall forward, and then also you are working against gravity with every step, where when you're coming down, you're not as secure because you're looking for that next foothold on the way down. So it's definitely more important to stay aware as you're going downhill.
Now, Franck, I'm looking through my notes for the episode here, and I didn't see anywhere where it said you were a physicist.
Physicist?
I mean, you're talking about physics right there. That's basic physics. Falling down.
I've talked to enough people to know that gravity pulls you down. And when you're climbing a mountain, you're working against gravity. Coming down the mountain, however, you're working with gravity.
Man, if you are listening to this episode, it's already paying off. I mean, just the nuggets of wisdom are coming fast and furious here. All right. Continuing with our hiking poll, tent or tarp?
I'm a tent guy. I know. I feel like I like to have one set of gear that I can use in multiple different situations. And so I like having the tent so that no matter what the climate is, if there's insects, I'm good inside the tent. I've used tarps, but again, it's just like we'll get to my van in air quotes here in a minute, but it's like I need as much universal things that can work in multiple situations.
Okay. And do you ever cowboy camp?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. If I can, if there's just, the weather's good, I'd prefer cowboy camping. So that's also a great option.
Good weather, no bugs. Cowboy camping is the way to go. Nothing but you and the stars out there.
Exactly.
Okay. Sleeping bag or quilt?
I am a quilt guy.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I sleep in, I think it's called the victory pose. It's going to be hard to explain, but like one arm goes under my head. The other arm goes up almost like I'm like jumping and screaming like congratulations or something.
Okay.
And so and then my legs, I like kind of jut one knee out at all times. And so I just take up a lot of room, even though I'm a little guy. So having the quilt, I feel like gives me a little bit more space to do that kind of thing.
For those out there who are just solely listening to this podcast, hit the pause button right now and go onto YouTube. Check out the video version of this episode. You'll see Franck really displaying, doing a great imitation of how he sleeps in the victory pose.
A great view. Yeah. And if you're really lucky, you might get to see me sleeping in real life.
Well, I hope I can keep you awake here. All right. And stove or cold soak?
Oh, always stove. Always. I know all my answers, I feel like, are putting me in like the pretty princess camp of like wanting to have a really nice campsite. But just having like warm cup of coffee or just a warm meal after a long day, I still enjoy it. I think the people who cold soak probably have done way more miles than me and are just burned out on all food, but I'm still enjoying the hot meals.
Yeah. Have you tried cold soaking?
I have, and I just can't. I can't. I think it was with ramen noodles and tuna, so maybe I should have maybe there's some better options out there, but I just can't do it.
Yeah, I've had a few guests who, swore by cold soaking, and even one gave me recipes for cold soaking. And so I gave it a legitimate shot this past summer. And I went about 3 days, and the rest of the guys I was hiking with, we hit the camp and they'd be warming up stuff and it smells so good. And it was, particularly cold and rainy trip. Yeah. And so, I lasted 3 days and then I said, I'm going to borrow a stove, and I gave in.
I mean, I understand like ultralight, every ounce counts. I count ounces. I keep my pack as light as possible. I've gone out with it at 16 pounds before. But I'm looking at like the weight of a stove and the trade-off, and I'm thinking I'm keeping that with me. It is not worth the weight savings for me. Mm-hmm. I'll save my weight other places.
Okay. And what luxury items do you typically bring on a multi-day hike?
Luxury items. So tripod is going to be considered luxury. And then I really don't bring anything else fancy beyond that. I mean, just the basics. I hardly even will bring like multiple changes of clothes. I guess I'll usually have like a pair of camp clothes and then like hiking clothes. So sleeping and hiking, sometimes I'll combine the two depending on what the temperature is. And then usually I'll bring some form of camp shoe. So I guess that could be considered luxury for some people. So probably because of my boots, I have to bring a camp shoe where all of you trail runner people don't need them. So
you know what? I use trail runners, but I also have camp shoes. So that is a luxury item. And I also bring a lightweight chair. People I know that the long trail hikers will call me soft and fancy for that, but man, there's nothing like being able to lean against something in camp. So
yeah, I do have a 1 pound trail chair that I very rarely will bring out, but when I have it, it is so nice because you don't have to worry about finding like a rock or a log to rest against. And the difference is huge, especially well, this was years ago, but I was in the Himalayas and the campground was just pure mud. Everywhere was mud. And so like our tents are full of mud, our boots are full of mud. And if you set your pack down, it's just mud. So like having a chair where you can put like your clean butt in your clean camp clothes is kind of nice if I had it at that point, but I didn't. So
that's right. And you're absolutely right about not having too many clothes. I mean, I think you don't want to bring 3 or 4 changes of clothes out there. I mean, two, the one you're wearing and the one you're going to wear the next day or 2 days down the road. And you can get it soaked in the river or the lake and wash them up a little bit and let them dry out on the pack.
You're good to go. I learned my lesson. My first backpacking trip, I had actually you're buying everything for the first time. You don't have a ton of money. And so I bought 2 pairs of hiking pants, which are like $70 each or something ridiculous. And as a short guy, they don't even fit me right. So I'm like paying all this money for something that doesn't even fit. But anyways, so then like I go 2 days in the 1 pair of pants and then I switch out to the clean clothes. I'm like, yes, I feel great. Everything's clean. And then within like a mile, I fall into a puddle and I'm just covered in mud again. So I'm like, well, that wasn't worth it. I will never do that again. And so ever since then, I just bring the pair of pants I'm wearing and then usually like some tights to sleep in, and that's it.
Yep. Sounds about right. All right. Hey, before we get too far down the trail, let's back up a little bit. I want to hear about your background, where you grew up. Were you involved in any kind of sports and hobbies as a kid? And how did you get involved in the outdoor adventure life?
Yeah, good question. So every summer I got sent off to a summer camp for a week, which was nothing like camping. It was in cabins, with heating and air conditioning. They had like nice meals cooked for us. But one night a week, we go out for 1 week. And one of those nights you go out into the woods and sleep in a tent. And so that was really my first like experience going out, sleeping in a tent. And I always just thought that night was so much fun because you're just out there in the woods and just all the sights and sounds and the fire and just sitting around a campfire just kind of brings in the good feelings. So that was kind of my like intro to it.
Something magical about a campfire.
Yes. And then going into like middle school, high school, I got involved in the Boy Scouts, which I'd go hiking all the time. And I always get in trouble for this. But at my school, not all Boy Scouts, at my school, I looked around one day and I was like, all these Boy Scouts are nerds. Why am I here? I don't want to be a part of this. And so I quit, and I probably would have had a much better high school experience if I would have stuck with it. But so I did a lot of camping with them.
Hey, Franck, I don't want to burst your bubble. The guy sitting next to you is probably thinking the same thing.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah, like why am I here with that guy?
Yeah.
So and then my last like time, I think realized like this was probably something I wanted to get more into was when I started my first job out of college. It was near a like wooded area, and usually after work, I'd go on a short hike just through the woods, just to kind of like decompress from the workday. And I actually had a friend that lived nearby that had a dog that needed walked. And so I'd stop by, pick up their dog and walk their dog through the woods. And I would find, deer in the woods. I saw the seasons change. So watched it go from summer to fall and just all the light leaf change. And then the winter came through. And so just watching all of that change made me really realize the beauty of nature and what it can do for you to be out there all the time.
Yeah, it's definitely a place to recharge and decompress. Like you said, people, there's a lot of people on the trail who are really stressed, and they go out into nature and onto the trail to, figure things out and get back to a normal state.
Yeah, I often say hikers are lost people, which is kind of funny because usually we have maps, but we still are, and we know how to read them, but we're still lost. So we go out there to find something a lot of times, or just whatever in the world isn't working for us. And so it's kind of a way of coping with a lot of just the stresses of life. And it's a lot healthier than a lot of the other alternatives when you are looking for a coping mechanism.
That's right. Now, what part of the country did you grow up in?
I grew up in the Midwest, and so like Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, kind of that tri-state area.
Okay. And brothers and sisters?
So I have two brothers, and I am the middle child. And I have what I call middle child syndrome, which is the lack of love. Any other middle child people out there will understand that I love attention, and I love, people just acknowledging me. And so that was something just growing up as a middle child that I think a lot of people have to deal with. So.
Yeah, you beat me to the punch. I was going to ask you if you're screwed up like all the other middle children out there.
Very screwed up. Yeah. Very screwed up. Yeah.
And do your brothers, are they also involved in the outdoors? Do they enjoy it and get out as often as you do?
That's a great question. No, they definitely do not. One brother is now in California, so he has a lot of outdoor like opportunity, but he is just more into indoor stuff. My other brother does enjoy going outside, but is not there nearly as much as me. I did kind of start the car sleeping trend with my family. So my dad, after I converted my car into a camper and everyone said I was crazy, after I started adventuring, people saw how fun it was. So my dad was the first one to put a mattress on the back of his car and go out for a few nights in the woods. And then my older brother now has done that as well. So I'm just working on the younger brother, and I'll get the whole family sleeping in their cars before too long.
Nice. Now, I know you have a Honda Fit. You said your dad put a mattress in the back of his car. Does he have like a VW Beetle or?
No, I got the little car. My dad has a crossover. It's I don't know their exact one, but it's a bigger like SUV. And then my brother's in a Jeep. So they have they're like in the Taj Mahal compared to my little Honda Fit.
Nice. And what college did you go to? You mentioned college.
So I went to school in Indiana. It was a small college in Marion.
Okay. And what was your degree in?
My degree was actually in education. So I wanted to go into some kind of like camping or just some kind of like recreation type thing. But I didn't think it was smart to major in recreation, because I was like, you could only do such a limited thing with that, which is like gym teacher or run a camp. And so I went into education because I thought it'd be more universal. And then I could also, learned how to teach and could teach nature and stuff. So that's what I majored in, and then immediately got a job at a camp after that. So I never really did the teaching situation.
Okay. My follow-up question was, how have you been able to put your education degree to use, and how do you pay the bills these days?
Do I put my degree to use? Yeah, college is great. Highly recommend. You will definitely get, what is it, like $200,000 these days? You will get your money's worth out of that degree. I'm just going to leave that there.
In 50 years is going to pay for itself.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. How do I pay the bills today? So I have kind of a few different things. So I rent out a house. And so it's there's a kind of a corner of it that I can crash in, but then there's other rooms that are all rented out. And then I actually have been making more money off Instagram lately, which has been really unexpected but exciting, just to kind of pick up an ad here or there. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm actually a male model now. So
nice. I was going to ask.
Yeah, you're in the presence of a male model.
Okay.
And then the third thing is I work for a nonprofit, which I can do remote. And so that's really a nice thing. And so that's some of the ways I'm able to travel so much, is when we're going international. Sometimes I'm doing work for that nonprofit, which is working on humanitarian aid around the world, which has been really hard with, the pandemic, but we are still moving forward with that.
Do you want to go ahead and drop the name of that nonprofit?
It's not necessary. So
okay.
That's
all right.
Yeah, this is just just what I do. And I don't like talking about the work I'm doing in some like some holier than thou type way, so it's easier for me just to say, I work for a nonprofit, we work on loving people, and just leave it at that. So that way I don't have to try to become Mother Teresa or put that syndrome in front of anyone. And I just want to encourage everyone that if there's ways that you can be kind to people, to do it.
It's a good motto. Now, you mentioned making money on Instagram. I think that's something everybody's interested in. How did that happen? I didn't even know that was a possibility.
Yeah. How did that happen? Oh, man. So I think a lot of people want to do that. You're right. And I don't make enough to live off of. And I will say I'm learning that it's way more work than I ever thought it would be. So it started with like smaller brands that would find me and they'd reach out and be like, hey, would you take this free product or whatever? And so I just take the product and post a picture with it. And that was that. And then kind of I got more and more of those. So I thought, I'm just going to say, hey, if you want me to take a picture with your product, I'm going to charge $50. I just started kind of small, and some said yes, some said no. And if they said no, I just kind of was like, well, I didn't really want the product anyways, or I'd say, what, I'll take the free product. Let's go back to that first deal. And it just kind of grew from there. Once I hit 10,000 followers on Instagram, there were actually some influencer agencies that reached out to me and put me into their network. And so basically, like any other modeling agency, they talk to brands, then they see if you're a good fit for the brand, and they connected me to really an endless supply of opportunity. And so it's been really fun. I do want to reiterate the point that it is way more work than people make it out to be. You look like you're just having fun with your picture and your coffee cup or whatever, but especially as like an outdoor influencer, someone who's like in the outdoors a lot, you have to drive to the location. You don't have service, so you can't get checked to make sure that the image is correct with the brand. You have to get permits if you're going on public lands to get any sort of paid partnership. And then, you take the picture and you send it to them, you edit it and send it to them. And then they're like, we don't like it. Can you do it again?
Man.
That took me half an afternoon just to get that. So, but it's been, such a blessing when it comes through. It's like, man, I'm going to go hiking anyways, so I might as well take your product along with it. So
I think I know why I was not aware that you could make money on Instagram. It's because I don't have 10,000 followers. I was just happy getting 1,000 followers the other day.
Sure.
So yeah.
So
you hit 10,000, everything just explodes for you.
I don't know about explodes, but just be your authentic self if that's something you're going for. But no, you're going to put in way more hours than if you started any other business. So it's like, this is a hobby. I enjoy hiking. I enjoy taking pictures. And now some people have noticed that and I get paid off it. So that's been fun. But you can also start below 10,000. It's just a matter of reaching out to those brands or somehow getting how can you make that brand notice you, and be small. So don't go straight for those big name brands. Start with small brands that are just starting up, because they'll work with anyone because they don't really have a budget for that. And if you're willing to just take the product and do it, other brands will see, hey, they're working with that brand we know, and they might grow off that.
Are you familiar with Whiskey Nate?
No.
He was in the whiskey business. He was, he repped, I forget the exact name of the position, but he kind of worked himself up and became like a representative for this one particular brand of whiskey. And then he decided that he wanted to do something with nature, get out in the world and take a step back. And he created this Instagram account. It's called Whiskey with Nate. And what he does, Whiskey with Nate, Whiskey Nate. It's called Whiskey Nate. And what he does is he actually got sponsors and traveled around the country and takes pictures out in the outdoors with either it's him and whiskey, or maybe it's just the whiskey out there in a beautiful alpine setting. And I had a chance to talk to him, and he was really, really interesting. And just living that life out on the road, living in his van with his dog and all his whiskey product, and taking those pictures out there.
Yeah. And that makes whiskey is a perfect example of something where there's a lot of startup companies. So you can always find small whiskey brands that would be willing to give you a free whiskey. And then the big brands will look over and say, hey, that guy has a lot of whiskey people that follow him, and they'll be willing to pay at that point. So it's a weird game, and not everyone can do it. I feel very fortunate to be sitting where I am. And sometimes I'm like, I look around like, how did this ever happen? Where like these big blue checkmark brands are like, hey, can we send you a product? I'm like, wait, really? Have you seen me? Am I the model you want?
So Franck, you're in elementary school, you're sixth grade, and someone asked you, what do you want to do with your life? What do you want to be when you grow up? What at that time in your life, what was the job that you wanted to aspire to?
Oh man. Yeah. I'm putting myself back into sixth grade. I don't want to stay here long. But
for sure.
I didn't really have a lot of drive as a kid. But a lot of times I would say artist. Which is funny because I never thought photography. I thought just like art in general. But now here I am.
Well, you're not that far off. That's a creative career, and you are very much in a creative career right now.
For sure, and especially with like Photoshop now, you can do a lot of digital painting. That's probably not the right term, but you can take an image and really make it look how you want it to look. And so you are kind of an artist in a way. Okay.
Hey, we're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, we're going to talk about some of your adventures, including I want to hear about the Honda Fit Life. So
yes,
stay tuned for that. We'll be right back. The John Freakin' Muir Pod is sponsored by Outdoor Vitals, the ultralight backpacking gear company whose mission is to improve the mental, physical, and emotional health of mankind by facilitating impactful outdoor experiences. Outdoor Vitals creates innovative technical products with confidence-inspiring education that empower outdoor ultralight adventurers. Their focus on performance enables you to live ultralight with gear you can actually be confident with. Whether you're looking for an ultralight sleep system, shelter, or pack, or if you're looking for top quality apparel for the trail, you can find it at Outdoor Vitals. Do yourself a favor. Live ultra light. And welcome back. We're talking to Franck, or Legs, or Calf Master. We haven't settled on one yet, but we've been using Franck for the most part here. And
I have commitment, so I have commitment issues.
Perfect. Just try those on and use them as you will. Then let's we referenced it a couple of times. Van life, your Honda Fit. Tell me about your vehicle, about your abode, and how this came to be.
Sure. So I was watching YouTube like anyone else, and there's all these ads, all this stuff about van life, probably 5 years ago. And I just kept thinking, man, that looks so cool, but I don't have $100,000. How am I ever going to get one of these beautiful vans? And then one day I walked out to my car, which is a hatchback Honda Fit. And I just thought, I think I could make this work. And so it was just before Christmas, and my family had already decided excuse me, that we were going to do Christmas in January. So I had some time off, and I just decided I was going to make it happen. So I found a mattress on Amazon. It's like a foam mattress, and I custom cut it to fit in there. And since I've had several different iterations, and that's basically the entire open space is my mattress. And then I've set up a little camp kitchen with, at the time, a stove from Amazon, a little cook set from Amazon, and I grabbed my sleeping bag and hit the road and just kind of figured it out as I went. A lot of what I learned was also through YouTube, through hikers, because I was looking for things that I could transport that didn't need refrigeration, especially when it came to food, things I could eat while driving, and then just wanted to be pretty universal and able to just take that same gear and go out on a hike with it. So it wasn't until about 6 months ago that I even took the back seats out. So for a long time, I just had bare bones space. I have a duffel bag with my clothes. I have a little section for my kitchen and food, and I have my bed and my backpack, which is probably the most important thing I have, so I can go out on adventures. And That's about it.
Van life on a budget.
Yeah, definitely. So we're talking about 40 miles per gallon in the Honda Fit. I blacked out the windows so I can sleep anywhere. Obviously, there's those free campsites and public lands that I tend to gravitate towards. But in a pinch, if you're in the Walmart parking lot, no one knows you from the car next to you, and they have no idea that you're sleeping in there. Where if you're in a van, you definitely will stand out in a situation like that.
Oh, stealth mode. I like it.
Very stealth. No electric either. I had no electric until a year ago when a brand sent me a battery, and I was like, sure, I'll try it. And so I charged that while I'm driving, and I can now charge my phone, which is insane. And so I have a little charging system. I don't have solar. I don't think I really need it. I don't know why you would. I don't know if you talk to many people who have a solar system, but I just plug that battery right into my car while I'm driving, and you drive enough where it charges it up, and then you can just live off that.
Perfect.
So,
now, what is the longest stint that you've spent in the Fit?
longest time period, I think, was 7 weeks back to back, sleeping in basically a different place every night. I have family in San Diego, Denver, and then I have a place where I can crash in Dallas. So I go there to just kind of like regroup, get a home base, wash everything, and then also do international trips or just like trips I have to fly to and stay at hotels, as I think we're going to talk about in a little bit. Yeah. So that kind of breaks it up. But really, I don't think I've been in like one place for more than a month in the last at least 2 years, 3 years. I've been on like doing this for about 4 or 5 years, but in the last 2 years, it's just been getting faster and faster paced.
Maybe your trail name should be Nomad.
Isn't that everybody though? See,
there are a lot of nomads out there.
I feel like everyone who's on trail is a nomad. We're just, glorified homeless people, but I don't know. Nomad isn't bad. I have adapted that before. So we could try that for a little while, see what happens.
Okay. All right. Now, the 7-week stint, was that the Dallas to Maine trip?
No, that was actually in the midst of COVID. So there was just a good time period there where everything was shut down but the national park. So I packed up my car and I headed to Utah because it was a place that was open. Mm-hmm. And I was not a person who was going to I was going to be safe because this was something we didn't know, but I didn't want to just sit at home. My family actually has experienced more mental health issues than we have physical issues from this whole situation. And so I think that was probably part of the motivator to just getting out and, hiking by myself in the middle of the woods is going to be a safe situation. So that's what started it. And I headed to Utah and just kind of kept going from there. Ended up going up Highway 1 and hitting a bunch of different spots along the way. Found my way up to Montana and then down to Yellowstone. So Wow. It was quite an adventure.
Let's talk about some of the highlights of that trip. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, I think really the big parks. So our Zion not being very crowded was just incredible. Angel's Landing was closed, so you couldn't do the chain section, which is obviously one of the highlights of that park. Mm-hmm. But having it just with basically they weren't running the shuttles, so whenever all the cars parked, that was it for the day. So I got there at like 5 a.m. You had to just wait at the gate, and when the gate opened, I drove all the way out to the Narrows, parked, and then took a little nap while everyone else was leaving for the Narrows. And then I went out and hiked the Narrows and came back, did the Angel's Landing piece, and really had the park pretty quiet during the summer, which is very rare. I usually, if I'm going to do Zion, I'm only going like November, December when there's not anyone there.
Okay. Was that the highlight from Utah? Did you hit any other parks? They have some beautiful national parks in Utah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Capitol Reef. I know it's one of the ones that people don't even know exists. It's kind of there in the middle. It's not as popular. So I did what's called the Flatiron Trail in Capitol Reef. Almost killed myself because I was looking up at the sky and I was like, it's getting a little bit cloudy, but I'm going to go for it. And so I did the hike, and I was kind of in this real open section, and the clouds were getting a little ominous. So I turned around and I was like, I'm done. I'm not going to kill myself. I actually saw 2 park rangers coming up behind me, and I was like, oh, are you guys here because of the clouds? And they're like, no, we're doing the whole thing. I'm like, well, if you're doing the whole thing, I guess I will too, because you're rangers. So I kind of hiked within earshot of them for a while, got all the way to the end. I did not realize it's a point to point trail. And so they had a car parked there. They had a car parked at either point. And so they hiked it and then got in their car and drove off. And I was like, oh, well, I have to hike back and the sky's just getting worse. And so I just had to hike across this like really open area up top, and the clouds are coming. There's one point, I've never been electrocuted, so I don't know exactly what it feels like, but there's one point where I definitely was like, I think this is where it's going to happen. And then, booked it to a little covered area with a rock, and I could actually kind of feel like static on my hands. And so would not recommend doing that.
Yeah, we talked to a young man who was in Yosemite this summer, right around the same time I was. And he talked, his name was Grant Breidenbach. That's right. He talked about an experience he had where he was stuck in a storm, and he had got his tent set up, and he sat on a bear canister about 50 yards away from the tallest trees, and just trying to hunker down. And one of those trees got struck. And he said that, it messed up his rods and cones in his eyes. He couldn't see. He's just like blinding for a while. And then it sounded like the sound started inside of his head, and his ears were ringing. So he couldn't see, he couldn't hear anything, and he couldn't feel his hands for about half an hour. So they were numb. And that's 50 feet away, or 50 feet or 50 yards. But what an experience. Holy smokes.
Lightning is no joke. And that's one of those really preventable things. And I use that as an example of what not to do, because it's very serious. And when there's clouds, I tend to turn around, because I'm like, it's not worth your life. It's hitting a peak, finishing a trail is not worth your life. Definitely know when to turn around and when the weather's not working for you. So that is quite an experience. I'm glad he's okay. That could have been really bad.
Yeah, could have been. Now, did you say you finished in Yellowstone? I thought, was it Yosemite or Yellowstone?
So,
or did you hit both of those on that trip?
Hit both.
Okay.
So I did Zion, and I forgot I had a friend's wedding. So I booked a flight from Vegas to Dallas. So I parked in Vegas, flew back to Dallas, had this wedding, flew back to Vegas. And Vegas was so weird. You walk to the strip, and every hotel, even like the hotel lights were off, like interior lights. All the billboards were black, and they're like, we're in this together. And it was just such a strange time in the world. Left Vegas and went to San Diego, and then, Joshua Tree, San Diego, and then ended up in LA. And I went out to the Channel Islands. I took a boat to the Channel Islands, and I met some people on the boat who were really cool, and ended up staying with them a few days. And they were like, hey, if you're in LA and you got nothing to do, you need to drive up Highway 1. And I was like, Yosemite was still closed at that point. And I thought, I'm not going to drive up Yosemite or all the way up to Northern California if I'm not going to Yosemite. And while I was with them, they announced that it was going to reopen. So I said, okay, I'm going up Highway 1. So I drove Highway 1, beautiful road, very much like they make it in Hollywood. I mean, there's all sorts of curves and cliffs and waterfalls, and it's incredible. Highly recommend. Got up there, booked one of the first week it opened. I was in the valley and did a ton of hiking in there. Wasn't able to do Half Dome, unfortunately, just because permitting for that is a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
But climbed to the top of Yosemite Falls and just did a bunch. Met a guy who was doing the PCT, gave him a ride, and which the PCT does not go through Yosemite Valley, but this guy decided to, I think it was like a 19-mile addition to his hike. He just added that and ended up in the valley. So I brought him back out. When
you're hiking 2,600 miles, I mean, 19, that's not a whole lot extra to do to see one of the great natural wonders of the world.
Yeah. I guess so. But I was, so I'd done enough research with through hikes that I knew like what a thru hiker was and what to look for. And so I was in Yosemite Valley, there's all sorts of like restaurants and nice hotels. It's very commercialized. I walked out of one of those buildings and there's a guy sitting there with this massive backpack. And I just go, PCT? And he goes, how did you know? Do I smell? I said, well, if you have a backpack that size in this valley, you either one, have no idea what you're doing, or you're doing the PCT. And so we talked for a little bit. And then he was in, I can never say it right, Tuolumne Meadows?
Tuolumne.
Something like, yeah, that one.
Tuolumne, yeah.
Yeah, that one. So, so I brought him back there and dropped him off, and he finished his hike, and that was that. From there, I went up to Glacier because I'd heard great things. Glacier was incredible. And then are you familiar with Forrest Fenn's Treasure?
Yes. They just found it recently.
Yes. Yeah. So my brother and I, my older brother, had been looking, like not really looking, but like theorizing where it could be. And we had an idea of where it would be, just outside of Yellowstone. And we were planning to meet there, but it was found like 2 weeks before. But we went ahead and met there anyways. And we went and looked for it, or like any evidence that this guy might have been there, and found no evidence, but we know we're right. So,
didn't they find it in the Rockies? Was it the Rockies, or was it?
I haven't done any research as of late as to where it was found.
Okay.
I just know when I was looking at it, the guy, his name was just announced. Did they announce the location?
I thought I'm gonna do some research here. Keep talking. Yeah, we.
Well, now I feel really foolish because I know exactly where it was, and maybe I was completely off. So we thought it was just outside of Yellowstone, not Yosemite, Yellowstone in Montana, because Forrest Fenn spent so much time there as a kid, and we there's warm waters, in Yellowstone with all the geysers and whatnot, and so we had a kind of a mapped idea of where we thought it was, but not sure, and maybe we were completely off.
Let's see. Oh, well, you're not too far off. He says he later revealed it was found in Wyoming.
Yeah. Okay.
He hasn't revealed where he found it, saying he doesn't want the spot to turn into a tourist attraction, but what he did say that it was in Wyoming.
Well, yeah, that would line up, right? Wyoming.
Yeah. Wyoming's near Yellowstone.
Okay. Yeah, because it's like on the border, right? It's like Idaho, Wyoming, and what's the other state it's in?
Montana?
Montana?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're totally right. We know exactly where
totally
that
right. I actually toyed with the idea of doing an entire episode devoted to the Forrest Fenn Treasure.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Didn't get around to it before the guy found it. So,
well, at least one guy who knows where the answer is. Me. So I did that, and then after that, it was about 7 weeks. I don't think I stayed the night anywhere twice in a row for 7 full weeks, except for those people I met. I stayed with them, I think 2 nights, and then I got a hotel, like maybe I'd have to go back and count, but probably like once a week I'd end up getting a hotel. The hardest part is always showering, which typically, I have a few things up my sleeve. I got truck stops, I got campsites, I got hotels, you just have all that. But with COVID, so much stuff was shut down. I ended up just getting hotels to shower. Like I was like, I don't need a hotel, but I just feel like I need to shower. Because when you're doing this car camping thing, you are around people so much. Sometimes you are very aware of your stink. And when you're through hiking or backpacking, it's anticipated. It's part of the culture. Everyone out there understands. But it's like, I'd like go on a big long hike in Utah and then go out to dinner, and I'm sitting next to families that are like all showered, and I'm like, I'm homeless. Like this is just ruining their experience. And so I try to get the shower in every week or so.
Once a week, that's about right.
Yeah.
That's what I do now. So
that's great. Saving the environment 1 week at a time.
That's right. All right. Hey, let's talk about some of your international travel. Did you take your Honda Fit overseas with you?
I wish it would make that much more affordable because I can sleep for free. But no. So I just really enjoy seeing places. And so Egypt was a place that was very easy to get to this year. Last I checked, I think they're still open to tourists. It's way less crowded right now because of tourism. So easy to get in, easy to get out, and the pyramids are really cool. So I would highly recommend that. I went in January of 2021, so it had just opened, and I made the decision to only go to Cairo, which I really regret. Because I didn't know what I was going to encounter once I got there because no one had traveled for so long. So I got there, went to Egypt, did the pyramids, did all that, and it was so easy. No problems at all. And I was like, man, I could have gone up the Nile. I could have done so much. Everyone was like, they brought us a police escort because they were so excited to have like Americans back in country because I think it's like 20% of the Egyptian economy is tourism. And so when that is shut down, if you imagine 20% of your like income is gone, like that's a big deal. And so they were very friendly to us, long story long. And I wish I had stayed longer and been able to do more tombs and whatnot, but incredible experience and loved it.
Okay. And then you also spent some time in Ecuador?
Yep. So Ecuador was another place where things are open, and it was an area I've wanted to go to and see. And so I went down to Quito, Ecuador, which is on the equator. I don't know if you're aware, if you speak Spanish, Ecuador is equator in Spanish. And so I know, mind blowing.
I was today years old when I realized that.
Yeah. And silly me, I thought the pyramids are on the equator, but they're not. They're on whatever the line is above the equator. There's like a different line.
The Mason-Dixon line?
Yes.
That's not it.
So I was like, I went to the equator twice, but I was wrong. But there's like all sorts of like experiments you could do on the equator. Of course, the like water turning is pretty typical. Your balance is different on the equator. So some really cool things.
Well,
and
tell me about that. Tell me about your balance. I haven't heard about the balance thing.
So, oh gosh, you're going to make me repeat what I learned. Oh, this is so hard. So normally you are not center on the earth, and the tilt is like making it so you're not as balanced. But when you're directly on the equator, you are spinning the exactly correct, and the gravity is actually stronger. It's strongest on the equator, so you have more compressing you and you can balance better, is the gist of it.
Franck, is this a thing, or was somebody pulling your leg?
I learned it in a museum.
Oh, it was a museum. Okay.
Yeah, they have a museum there with a shrunken head and all sorts of really cool things. And you can learn all about the ancient peoples of Ecuador, which actually there are still people groups that live out in the woods, in the jungles that are uncontacted, which is, pretty incredible. But you can learn about what we know about them in that museum. And then you're surrounded by mountains and volcanoes and some really cool places. So yeah, there you go.
And did you do any hiking in Ecuador?
Yeah, I didn't do a ton of hiking. I stayed more in Quito, the main city, but then there is a volcano that is out in the wilderness a bit, and so I took a drive out there, and it's like an old volcano. If you've been to like Tahoe or Crater Lake, I kind of would say it's similar in a sense, but basically top of volcano blew off, so it leaves this big cone, and so you have like a mountain with a lake in it. But what's unique about this one is the cone came back. Well, actually, now that I say that, I think Crater Lake has this too. So right. the actual, like the old top of the mountain is like in the middle of the lake, so it's like an island lake, and then you have your mountain around you. So it was a really, really neat spot.
Sounds beautiful. Crater Lake is awesome.
Yeah. I went to Crater Lake once, and it was foggy, and I saw nothing. I am not bitter about it. So
make a good Instagram picture.
Yeah. It'd just literally be a white block. So it was nothing.
Now, speaking of Instagram, how has been the fan interaction? I know
The
you have
fan interaction.
yeah, you've got an audience out there who is waiting for your next post. And do you get a lot of interaction with your fans?
You know, what's crazy is Instagram is like, every time you post, it's like playing the lottery. You have no idea what that post is going to do. So I started posting reels. I like photography. I started this whole thing because of photography. And then they're like, hey, you want to be relevant? Make reels. So now I'm being a comedian on this thing. But I posted one reel and it now has like 17 million views. It has more views than people who live in like 40 some states. Like more people than let's see, what's like a big state like Florida. It has more views than people who live in Florida. Like that's unbelievable, right? And it's just like me and some music. It makes no sense. And then I do like a reel and I'll have like 2,000 views. And my friends are like, that's actually way funnier. We like this one better. Can you do this one again?
So how did the one with 17 million, how did that strike gold? I mean, what happened there?
I have no idea. It's the lottery, man. I have no idea. But like, there's like, so now I'm like diving into this because I'm like, I have this like 17 million post, you know? And so I look at like Dude Perfect or like I don't know, like other famous influencers and like look at their reels, and mine has more views than any of theirs. But then like the other reels of mine get like 10, 50,000. So it's like nowhere near their level, but I have no idea what's going on there. So, you know, you get your internet trolls that talk about how cringy it is or like how stupid it is, or they want to just make a scene about it. But the majority of people are just so nice, so encouraging. I think everyone just wants to see people outdoors, enjoying the outdoors. So I try to, whenever I can, post about leaving no trace and just outdoor smarts. I also will often talk about mistakes I've made. So I haven't done anything about lightning, but like there's actually that video, maybe that's it, is I talked about a time I ran out of water while I was hiking. And so, you know, just talking about, hey, the importance of water. And if you want to live through your hike, plan ahead. But yeah, so I meet a ton of really cool people. I have met up with a handful. I'm trying to think. 1, 2, at least 4 or 5 people like in real life. And then there's other people I like meet on trail who then we become internet friends. So that's been just a really fun experience, is just to find these people who otherwise I would never have met. And then I meet them in real life and we go out on an adventure together. The strangest thing for me has been, I view this as like a very one-way thing where it's like me versus screen, and I'm taking the picture, I'm editing the picture, I'm posting it. I enjoy my memory, and it took me until this year to realize every time I post, it's going onto someone else's screen in their living room, and it might speak to them in a way that I never intended. And so there's these people who are like, oh my gosh, the way that you said that, like it just taught me. I'm like, whoa. I'm not like a person who you should change your whole life after something I've said. Like I just wrote that quote because I thought it was interesting. Like I didn't mean for you to like go and quit your job or whatever. Like don't take financial advice from me, please. But yeah, that's been really interesting. And then just the way sometimes people will like view me as like I've even had acquaintances be like, oh, Frank, you're like a celebrity. I'm like, no, I'm just a guy who makes weird videos and Instagram posts. But so I guess, yeah, I'm learning that I might mean something to someone else that I never anticipated. And so that's been kind of a cool experience as well.
That is a cool thing. Just, I know just doing the podcast, having like I've got listeners in all 50 states and I think 70 countries around the world. And just knowing that there's somebody in Cambodia, for example, who has turned on this podcast and listened to me blather on about somebody, something or talk to somebody. It's just mind blowing. And I had the opportunity this summer to go out on another hike on the John Muir Trail in the Sierras. And I brought some stickers along, some John freaking Muir pod stickers. And I was handing them out as like trail magic, you know, slap this on your bear canister or do whatever you want with it. And it was very gratifying to run into quite a few people who said, hey, I listened to that podcast. Hey, are you Doc? And
love
that
that.
was that, it just blew me away. And of course, made my head even bigger. So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, if there's anything I've learned through all this is just staying humble because I mean, I just, like I said earlier, just so grateful because I know so many people want to make money off Instagram or see it as some like gold mine. And I'm like, I don't know how it ever got to where it is, but I'm just so glad that I get to do this. And when I meet people and like find out that I've encouraged them in some way has been really fun. They're actually, okay, I'm going to share a quick story. So I was in REI, where I probably would be most likely to get recognized. And there's this guy who, I don't even remember where the REI was, but he was like, Frank. I'm like, oh, hey, like, are you a friend from like high school or something? And he's like, aren't you in Utah right now? Which I had just posted about being in Utah because it's not always live. Sometimes I'll repost things or it's just like I don't have time to get the posts out in time. And so that's just like a week or so late. He's like, aren't you in Utah right now? And I'm like, oh, you follow me on Instagram.
that's a bit creepy.
Yeah, and then there's an REI employee with him, and because they were like shopping together, and the REI guy's like, "Are you famous?" And I'm like, "No, I'm very much not famous, but evidently famous enough to be recognized at least there." So
That's awesome.
yeah.
What's next for Franck?
So holidays, I am visiting family in Colorado right now, which is a blast, and then I will leave shortly after Thanksgiving and head to Utah. It's going to be really cold, but I have some things planned and some photos I want to take. And then from there, I am going to backpack through the Grand Canyon. And so I am really excited about that. It's been on my bucket list for a long time to do that. And with COVID restrictions, it's just hasn't been able to happen. So yeah, hang out in Arizona for a little bit. And then after I backpack, when I get out of the canyon, the Arizona State Parks and I are going to work on some marketing materials. So that's going to be an experience. I don't feel equipped to do this at all, but I'm going to go to a few different state parks and take some photos that they can then use to, just in some posts and stuff. So that's something I'm really excited about.
That's incredible. Fantastic. Congratulations.
I know. Who would have thought that some short, stocky guy with an iPhone would be able to do all this? But it's fun. So yeah, enjoy it. I think that's another thing I'd want to leave your listeners with is if you have a hobby, just enjoy it. If it gets somewhere, great. Live in that. But in the meantime, just enjoy going out and taking photos because that's how I got here. Is I was just having fun.
All right. Now you mentioned mistakes a little while ago, and we're going to do a quick top 5. You don't have to go into a lot of detail, but I'm curious, what are the top 5 biggest mistakes you've made out there?
5 mistakes. I don't
If you can't think of 5, maybe do 3.
I don't even have one. I mean, I'm just so perfect. So, okay, the first one that always comes to mind is there was a time in California that I parked in a church parking lot because I couldn't find any place to park and I was desperate and I just parked there. And then I decided to sleep in. And so come like 8:00, the pastor is at my window like, are you okay? Are you homeless? Is everything okay? And it was a Saturday. I didn't think, I was like, no one comes to church on a Saturday. But yeah, so that would be one of the mistakes. I don't know if these are in order or not.
They don't have to be. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Number 2, or another mistake I've made is I backpacked or I didn't backpack actually. I day hiked in Big Bend, which is the desert between Texas and Mexico, and it is very hot. And I set out to do Emery Peak, which is like, I think 4 or 5 miles. And then I finished that and I thought, hey, I can add these additional 15 miles and make a loop. And so I just added a bunch of miles and did not bring nearly enough water for that. Ended with sunburn, really hot, really freaking tired, and ran out of water like within 2 miles of the end of the trail, which isn't terrible, but I was in rough shape by the time I got out of there. Always have your water. The third one would definitely be the lightning situation. So again, if the sky looks bad, turn around, especially, well, this wasn't a 14er, but in Colorado, if you're doing any of those big peaks, especially in the afternoon, you need to turn around. All right. From there, I need 2 more mistakes. Leaving without things. I do that quite often now. I think I used to hike and be very paranoid about not forgetting things. And then I just started doing it so much where I just am so comfortable on trail where I'll just not check my bag before I leave. And then I'll realize, oh, I don't have my headlamp with me, or oh, I don't have whatever emergency supplies. And I think, oh, it's just 2 miles. I can trek out of here in no time. But then I get caught out there and like, oh, I really wish I had my headlamp right now because that would be helpful. And I need 1 more mistake. Yeah, I'm just too perfect. I don't have enough.
Okay, 4.
I think from there it just would be like route planning. So very often, like when you're doing a road trip, you don't compare the distance to the destinations to weather systems. So I've gotten to like the Tetons before, and it's just completely fogged out, and so then you got to drive up to Yellowstone to even do anything worth doing, because if you can't see anything in the Tetons, don't even go. And so like watching the weather and watching like the road, and so knowing how long it's going to take you to get to a place and what the weather's going to be like when you get there.
Okay. Hey, Franck, you know where we are?
That place where I don't know where we are. Did I do it right?
You did. Yeah,
Okay.
That's right. You followed the script perfectly. Yeah, I don't know. Where are we? We're at that time of the episode where I ask you for your pro tip insight of the week. What nugget of wisdom can you share with our listeners to make their next outdoor experience even better? Ooh, he's holding something up. This is a visual for those of you listeners out there who are not watching on YouTube.
Pause right now and go to YouTube because it's great for the analytics of
or YouTube.
Everything. YouTube, yes.
YouTube, that's a knockoff.
This is a roll of leukotape. I learned about it, a few years ago, and I will never go back to moleskin again. Leukotape is a medical tape. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it, yes.
Okay. So I think it's gaining popularity in the hiking world, but I used to bring the moleskin stuff. This I feel like is way more sticky, and it stays on better for me, and it has solved so many feet issues. So I would not leave without a roll of leukotape, and then I wrap it up against itself, and it's the smallest little thing, and I always have that in my bag anywhere I go. Okay. Tip, am I allowed to do 2 or just 1?
You're Franck. You can do 2.
Great. Tip 2, chapsticks. Chapstick. Always have chapstick, multiple sticks. You're going to lose them. And when I'm outside, I need stuff on my lips all the time. So
leukotape and chapstick. Excellent suggestions. So there you have it. That's it. This episode is just about in the books. Hope our listeners enjoyed our time with Franck. I want to thank him for joining us this week. Franck, how can our listeners keep up with you on social media, and where can they find updates on your latest adventures?
Yeah, so I'm on Speaking Quite Frankly on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, primarily on Instagram. So Speaking Quite Frankly. Would love if you thought this episode was cool to just shoot me a message and say hello, and I'd love to meet you and see where you're at.
And he is responsive on social media. That's how we met here. I just reached out to him and he got right back to me, and here we are.
There you go.
So remember to check out the pod on social media as well. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And if you have comments or clips you want to share, you can send it to me at johnfreakinmuir@gmail.com. Franck, I'm also looking to you to share a recommendation for a book, a movie, a documentary, some sort of adventure media. It's a way of keeping our listeners connected to the outdoors during the off season. Do you have something? We're calling this our adventure media recommendation. What do you have for us?
Yeah, well, off season, I don't believe in an off season. There's just, you have to drive to that season that you want. But shoot, the name of it is Kiss the Ground, I believe. Kiss the Ground. It's it's more about like eco-friendly green movement stuff, but it is a documentary, and I highly recommend it. I will find it and I will send it over to you, so you can put that wherever you want to put it.
Okay. And before we wrap things up, I've got one more segment for you called "What Have I Not Asked You That You're Dying to Tell Us About?"
Oh, what have you not asked me? You have not asked me. I'm like looking around here to see what I could find. You have not asked me what my my secret weapon has been on Instagram, and my secret weapon has been my bald head, because I do not have hair. And for those that are listening, and for a lot of my life, I was insecure about that and wanted to hide that. But one day I was taking a picture and I realized the bush behind me kind of looked like hair. It wasn't on purpose, but it was kind of funny. And then from there, I just started making things look like hair. So I have arches as hair, cactus as hair, bushes, whatever. And so I just always have a new fun hairstyle. And so I think it's done two things. One, you take whatever is your weakness and it can become your strength. And so I just wanted to kind of put that out in front of people for whatever you might be insecure about, is to make that into your strength, and to just to encourage you, because there's actually been people who reach out to me, actually a lot of women who will talk about thinning hair and how they're insecure about it. And it's just given me an opportunity to love and encourage people. And so, that's what you haven't asked me. And that's what I wanted to share with your audience.
Fantastic. You are so positive, Franck. Such a very supportive, helpful, wanted to do good out there in the world. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
All right. That's a wrap from the John Freaking Muir studio. Any shout out to friends and family, Franck?
Yeah, all of them. Shout out.
Okay. Well, thank you for tuning in. Always remember, the trail is the trail. It doesn't care if you want to go downhill. It doesn't care if it's almost dark and you're looking for a campsite. It doesn't even care if you've conked out in a church parking lot and the pastor is knocking on the window of your Honda Fit. The trail is the trail. Embrace the suck.